Introducing the official Werx coffee in 3 bold flavors. Fog Navigator, the master of mornings, chocolate and apricot. Texas Pecan, Lone Star Luxury, pecan and cocoa. House Decaf, full flavor, no buzz, smoky dark chocolate. 3 bold new flavors now available at monkeywerxus.com/shop or scan the QR code on screen now.
All right. Hey, welcome, monkeys. This is going to be your sit rep. It is 11 a.m. Central Time, coming to you live here from the Monkey Lounge here in the great state of Texas. And so we're going to get into the deets. A lot of things going on. We have the ramp up happening in Israel with the ground effort, although they are not going in hot just yet. They are actually just kind of punching holes in little areas. That's the first piece. The other thing, too, is we need to look at and start thinking about, are we on the cusp of a Crusades 2.0 in the making? We are watching the countries around the world where these pro-Palestinian efforts are ramping up. We're seeing the United States go in hot to a situation that, I think Israel probably could have handled it on their own. And now all of a sudden we've got 2 carrier groups and a whole bunch of other things in the region. We're going to have to look at that closer as well. But it does kind of have that feel. I know if you talk to a lot of the Tier 1 Special Forces guys, a lot of them have seen this coming for quite some time. And so it's, maybe it's time to listen and pay attention to what they have been saying for a while. So, all right, let's do this. Let's jump over here to the mini board as we get into the deets here and peel this banana back. But we are sitting at around 238. I've already stripped out 39, so 40 Tex 2s and 21 T38s, roughly 60 trainers that are up, usually right here in just kind of the meat of things. We're going to look at some of the electronic suite that is currently up as we speak over the United States, because that kind of gives you a feel for, kind of the flavor of what is happening out there right now. And then, of course, we're going to get into all the other stuff, the intel, the drones, the R-135s, the C-17 traffic, which tells a very interesting story as well. And again, 238 roughly, just over the United States. Those are military assets only, okay? So let's do this. Let's first look at the fuelers, the air refuelers that are up. And you're going to see that we have some stuff popping in kind of some unique areas we don't see them a lot of, and that is down off of the coast of Florida, all right? Now, I've got some R-135 activity, too, that kind of dovetails into that. Makes you wonder what's going on there. And then, of course, we got several ships headed down to that Texas border, right? And then, of course, we get up over the Northeast. We see the things that we typically see. And that is kind of patrolling out there off of Norfolk, off the East Coast, off of D.C. But there, look at this, down right off over the Keys, okay, Cuba to the south. Then we get over to Europe and take a look at this. I mean, look at this track that's running back and forth. So that tells you we've got fighters that are kind of going in and out of that area, as well as AWACS. We're going to look at those. Look at this over the Mediterranean. That's how you know you got a carrier in the middle of all of that, because they are supporting those F-18s and F-35s, whatever's on that carrier group that's launching out over the Mediterranean. And then, of course, the other side, look at this, over the Persian Gulf. Again, another indicator we got stuff there, as well as up into Iraq. So there gives you a kind of a look, or that gives you kind of a look of the current air refuelers. It is light compared to what we have been seeing, but they are very active. And all right, now let's look at the electronic suite, because this also tells a little bit of a story. Notice the E3s and the E6. Notice where that E6 traveled to off of the Gulf of Mexico. That has launch codes on it, right? That tells you we got a Navy sub out there over the water, or in the water, not over, but in. E3 over the Panhandle, right? And then notice here, that's a Q4 drone just getting airborne out near Washington, D.C., another E6 off the East Coast, an E2, which is electronic suite, and then that R135 kind of out of place, right? Don't see that very often headed out over, that's kind of the UP side up there near Lake Huron. Now, one thing I'm not showing is there's an E7 that is out. That's a 737 electronic. That's an Australian bird that is also in the Panhandle with that E3 Sentry, okay? All right, now let's look at our watch list. We just jumped in. Well, let's see. We are going to start off. Sorry, we did not look at the watch list. Getting out of sequence here. That's a drone right off of Benghazi, right? That's important because the Russians have a big presence there. And then the Turkish drones we see quite a bit of. That's another drone currently up. This is live, by the way, off of just near, actually, Gibraltar. That's going to be the pass-through for the Ike as it comes through, the Eisenhower. Notice the amount of flights up over Israel currently as we speak. 8 hours ahead, so it's about 6 p.m. in the evening there. That is your State Department coming in and out of Baghdad, it looks like. And then that's just going to be a Ruski coming back from the east. And kind of a weird-looking airplane. It's like a 727, but it's got two engines on each side on the tail, which is really strange. That man in the middle, look at this, right there, okay? And they're doing it in several locations. That little Swede bird, that's actually an Intel bird. And then you've got your normal, mill Intel balloons. There he is. Look at that over the North Sea, man in the middle. So anybody that's in a ship down below, that thing, those phones are connecting to that E3, and they're gathering all the data, so they're watching very closely. Thing's an amazing, the electronic suite on that is just, it's just really cool. I mean, not cool if they're listening to us, but you know what I'm saying. It's just amazing the technologies out there today are just absolutely over the top, okay? Now, the other piece I find interesting, notice this Habal that's, first off, the Phoenix Airs, okay? Look at the Phoenix Airs. There's that Australian E7 I was telling you about. Now, there, look at this Habal. Oh, 666. Out over the Bahamas. Remember, I'm going to show you in a minute, R135. We've got fighters down there. There's something going on down there in that section that we are eyes on and very concerned about. Now, a lot of the Phoenix birds seem to be up right now, headed westbound. I don't know where they're going, but they are very active this morning. Remember, those are agency-associated birds. Got a little Q9 up towards the Canadian border. All right. Now, look at the Intel side of the house. This is kind of interesting. It's over, I think that's Reno, if I'm not mistaken. So, little Intel area over the United States. Not a lot last 3 days. Not currently up as we speak, and then, of course, the path that we normally see, right? So they are still very, very interested in what's going on with Russia and the Ukraine. We're going to talk a little bit about that here today as well. But then you get down looking very closely at Crimea. And then, let's see, some stuff going out over between Turkey and Greece in that area. And then, of course, Israel, as always, look at the path that they've been beating down over the last 3 days as they basically start targeting ground forces within Gaza and allocating the resources accordingly. All right. So let's look at the drone side of the house. Now, notice this one that is very close to Gibraltar. All right. And I'm going to show you where some mill Intel balloons are too that are moving to that general area. Remember, that's a pinch point right there at Gibraltar. That is where the Eisenhower has either come through or is about to go through and enter the Mediterranean. And this, again, that's an area north of Benghazi, north of Tripoli. We've been watching that today. The last 3 days, that's where that was located, coming out of Malta. And then, of course, off Turkey, we see our normal Q4, Q9 out over Black Sea. And then this is a new drone we actually caught yesterday evening, looking at this one right off of, I don't know who that belongs to, but it's right off of Gaza over the water. And then, of course, look at this in the Persian Gulf, the amount of assets that are in there as well. And notice that they are traveling back and forth between countries. All right. Okay. And that last little intel piece here down off the border. Notice it's out over the water and then towards that southern border there between Arizona and California. All right. Now let's go take a gander at the R135 activity last 3 days. Notice this around the horn headed up towards Russia, right? And then you've got this that is down to the southern end of France. And then we've got this one here right off of the Israeli coast, all right, into the Mediterranean. But look at this. Remember, we were just showing you the fighter activity that's down in that area off the Keys. And then this one is just same thing. It's kind of in between Florida and Cuba. They could be looking at anything. Trump to the north, probably are, honestly. And then down here to the south, right? That's your deep state boys probably getting eyes on, looking at Cuba, looking at the other side of Cuba. But remember, we've got that Habal 666 that's down there right now as well, right? And then we see some things headed up towards the Canadian border. And then, of course, out over the South Pacific side of the house towards Baja, which I think that's kind of interesting. Okay, so that covers most of our stuff on our watch list. So let's get into the other aspect of this, which would be the news cycle, right? And let's see what's going on here. So one thing I was meant to point out, we were just talking about the other Habal, which was the one that's down in the Keys, right? Or not, yeah, I guess near the Keys, near Bahamas. But check this one out. This is off of the Western Sahara. There are two of them in the general area. Look at this. What are they doing? I don't know, but they are high altitude mil intel balloons, and I've already got them loaded into my tracker. I just thought this was easier because they are currently up 60,000 feet. Going to be a little higher. Oh, snap. Something went wrong. Let's reload, see if it gives it to me. Yeah, there we go. All right, but remember, just a little bit to the north here, this is where we've got the Eisenhower pushing through. We've got drone activity right there off of that general area. And then, of course, we have these two that are pushing down a little further south towards Africa. So two of them together, that's not good. All right. And then we do have this one. This is the one we just talked about. And we'll hit the little trace button on that. Look, see where it's coming from. So we went further out. Now it's headed back. Looks like it's coming back to the U.S. at this point. But that bad dude is sitting at 61,900 feet, getting a pretty good look at everything out here. And then, of course, remember the R135 running out here as well as it looks like fighter activity out here. Okay. All right. So let's move on from that. Let's get over here to Flashbang's schedule today. It looks like he and his wife are actually departing Joint Base. I didn't see anywhere they were actually going to, but it looks like they are going to be talking about AI stuff today. And let's see. First Lady hosts public school students, military-connected children, neighborhood families, and trick-or-treating by 9 a.m. All right, whatever. Okay, well, let's just move on. Here we go. This is one of the big things we need to talk about, and that is the Israeli tanks entering Gaza. They are just, on Friday when we were wrapping up our sit rep, they were actually just starting to breach and go in. Threw me a little bit off because I figured, it's the Shabbat. They probably aren't going to be doing much. It doesn't look like this is the full-blown ground offensive. They look to be kind of popping in, dabbling. Last I read, they had bombed or taken out 84 mosques in Gaza. Now you think about that. That's 35 miles from end to end on that strip, and they had already taken out 84 of those. I also had read somewhere that they had basically leveled 19,000 buildings. So it looks like they are going to just take them by air to begin with, and then they'll go in and do the ground assault side of the house. They may also be kind of focusing more on trying to get these hostages out, locating them, etc. But let me see if I can grab the latest information, and that is relative to, now this is going to be your Navy assets. We talk about Israel and what's going on. First off, notice the Ike, which is not quite to the region yet. It is, like I said, I think it's pretty close to Gibraltar, if I had to guess, or maybe just getting past that. This stuff can be a little bit delayed from time to time. But do note that we've got things that are moving around the bottom, around the Horn of Africa, south of Yemen, into the Red Sea. And then, of course, we've got assets, which blew me away. I did not realize that we had U.S. Coast Guard cutters over there near the Gulf of Oman, which just threw me off because I thought the U.S. Coast Guard, I guess maybe they do deploy internationally. I thought they were typically around the United States, maybe down into Cuba, but looks like they are actually deployed over there. A lot of cutters, 6 of them. And then other ships that are in the region, we do have, it looks to be about 8 or 9 or 8 actually that are in the area, but not really assigned responsibility quite yet. And then we just got news that the Bataan ARG and 26 MEU was actually rolling out. Now that's the one I talked about on Friday a little bit in terms of their movement. The Marines, the MEU segment of the Marines basically came out and said, made a statement to the terrorists. They said, hey, we're coming from a peace perspective right now, but if you attack us, your children will be raised by somebody else. I thought that was a glorious statement by the Marines, but that just kind of gives you a lay of the land in terms of where these ships are located. Of course, this isn't precise data, but it just gives you an idea who's in the region. And of course, we already knew the carrier group Ford was in that same region. So that's that aspect of it. Now, if we look at what's going on from the map, one thing I want to point out, if you notice to the north, look at the amount. So the red bomb icons are going to be to the north. That's probably going to be Hezbollah popping things off over the border. The blue are Israeli responses. Okay, that's them taking out ground targets. Notice that there is stuff that pops off into Syria, into Lebanon, all along that northern border in Israel, to the north there of this graphic. And then notice too, you see some little things that are happening over in the West Bank, but then down south, it's just completely covered up with the blue dots, a couple of reds, but for the most part, it's the blue dots down into Gaza. That's the Gaza Strip headed down south. So it just gives you a lay of the land of what's going on. Like I said, they have started the campaign, but not to the degree that they are going to go. All right. And they say that this is the long game. They're not, they don't think they're going to be done anytime soon. They say this could last months, which is a pretty interesting data point. All right. Now somebody shared this with me last night. This is off of the Law Enforcement Today website, but it says they are preparing for war in America, are they preparing for war in America? Commerce Department pauses export of firearms, ammo, and related items. Now, my initial blush was, oh, well, maybe they're trying to prevent us from sending stuff to Israel, but that's not the case. Actually, Israel and Ukraine are exempt from this. So you can still ship stuff over there, but everything else is on pause. And so that question, are they prepared for war in America? Again, are we talking about, this big conflict? Is this going to be a Christian against a Muslim thing that goes back to the Crusades very, very early on? That's how it went down. And let's see what happens. But certainly feels that way and looks that way, doesn't it? All right. This happened just last night in Russia at one of the airports. There was an Israeli flight that had landed, and they say that these pro-Palestinians basically breached the airport barriers and rushed the aircraft, and were trying to basically go after the Israelis on the aircraft, which is nuts. You can see them in this picture going across. Very, very crazy. That to me, that's the lowest fence I've ever seen going into an airport, that you can just hop over that and be, 5 feet high and you're into the airport near a plane. It blows me away. But, the thing that I've pointed out in the past, you get around an aircraft that's got that engines are running, you can very easily get sucked into that engine inlet. So that's why I squawked on the whole Afghanistan thing with these people running around with their turbines in front of that giant engine, because that thing, it literally will suck the water vapor out of concrete. It has that much suction, and there's just no way you're doing that. Plus, it's very, very loud, and it would have been just killing their ears, all right? Okay, Russian storm airport in attempt to attack passenger flight of an Israeli flight. They say no Israelis were injured, but 20 people have been injured, or about 20 people, and are currently receiving medical treatment, according to local health officials. Now, that happened in Russia, and I would imagine they probably learned a valuable lesson after doing that, all right? But it didn't stop there. Check this out, this intifada, whatever. Intifada. I'm not even going to try and pronounce this. Intifada. There we go. Sound it out, my man. Okay. From London to Gaza, pro-Palestinian protesters call for violent revolution against Israel at massive demo in the British capital. This, there were pictures that the bridge, the London Bridge that was going across, was absolutely chocked full of people. What I find funny in this is that when you see this redhead guy here and this little blonde lady, and this lady here, I got news for you. If this goes hot, they will kill you. Okay, they don't discriminate. You may think you're going to run alongside them and be all supportive and everything else, but they will turn on you in a New York minute. So it's just like the folks when you see them coming out, all the BLM piece, and you got all the white folk that are running around with them, supporting them, and the dogs will turn on you in a heartbeat. And that's what you have to remember, is that this mindset, especially in a crowd environment like that, it is, they are, and they will turn into rabid dogs very quickly. It's, it's like a pack, and all it takes is one of them to turn on one person, and then they all do. So anyway, that is what was going on over here in London. Of course, it didn't stop there, but here is just kind of, if you're, the Intifada is an Arabic word that means shaking off. And in the Palestinian context, it refers to a civil uprising, and that the first one occurred in Gaza in December of 1987. They say that these start out initially not being violent, that it's supposed to be this peaceful uprising, but that very quickly changed, and now you can see the one that took place here against the Israeli security forces killed over 670 Palestinians and injured thousands more. And anyway, you can see what that actually turned into. So it's not a good situation by any means. And then this is in New York, right? You've got it here, thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters. And the Jewish ceasefire advocates, they're one and the same, shut down the Brooklyn Bridge, headed into New York City's Grand Central Station as well. So anyway, that happened here in the U.S. And then check this out. Police clash with anti-Israeli activists. I noticed the wording change on here. Basically that, at this banned protest in Paris, the words change, and it's that's the media just trying to put their little spin on it to make it seem like it's one thing when it's something else. The flags tell you everything you need to know, right? And then this, I think, speaks volumes as we talk about this potential for, this really escalating, especially when the U.S. comes rolling in to an area that probably Israel, like I said, could handle easily by themselves. I think it's good that we support them. Don't get me wrong. I think that is what we should be doing. But I don't know how much, when I show you the C-17 flight here in just a minute, I don't know how much we really are supporting them rather than hindering them, okay? And so, but this Schultz in Germany says that they need to expand the deportation of rejected asylum seekers. So what happens is, we get into the C-17 side of the house. I'm going to show you. First off, notice the aircraft that are coming either into or out of Hawaii. I believe they're coming out of. I think they're being probably deployed. Notice they go to 3 little locations up the west coast of the U.S. and then into Alaska. All right, that's probably F-22 stuff if I had to guess. Now, the other piece is, notice what's going on up our eastern seaboard, all right, from the south all the way up north. So my guess, and here's what I'm thinking is happening, when you see them going up and down that seaboard like that, we are seeing an uptick, a significant uptick in trains headed to the East Coast loaded full of military equipment. So that tells me they're headed towards the ports where normally they would be put onto ships and floated across, because that's the cheapest way to transport things. But I think because of the sense of urgency, we are basically bringing them to that mustering point on the East Coast, right, where everything is just being combined. Instead of putting them on ships, we're putting them on C-17s, and we're flying them over to Europe and into the Middle East. All right, look how thick this trace is. Now, this is the last 3 days. All right, so that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday that we're looking at. Look at the flow going into Germany, right? Massive flow going into Germany. And then notice they fly out of there back and forth into the Middle East and not into Tel Aviv. They're flying into Egypt. And I'll show you that here in a second on the map. All right. And into Jordan. So we are just loading up things in and out. My guess too is a lot of these flights that are coming out of that area headed into Germany more than likely contain people coming out of Gaza. All right, by the droves. Thus the German chancellor saying that they need to expand deportation of rejected asylum seekers, right? Connecting the dots. So that's how you know they are basically putting them all together. I think they're coming out of Cyprus, and I think they're coming in and out of Germany. And the reason I say that is because this guy is squeaking right now, all right? Because he sees what's going on. They got a big problem on their hands. All right. Over here to the NOTAMs, we still have this one for Starlink associated. Looks like that's going to be an inbound deal. And up and down the West Coast, up here in Alaska, we've got some boxes. Those look to be, I don't know what that is, actually. Let me just click on it and see if it gives me anything. Just a flight restriction. Look at this. Agency in charge is NASA. All right. Now, remember, let me just kind of push that back. Right in here is HARP. So the fact that NASA is up here doing some stuff, make you kind of wonder, doesn't it? All right. Same thing here. Yeah, this is all NASA related, all 3 of these boxes. And when I say NASA, you're talking about NOAA. Okay. One thing that I did notice that I have not shown you is that NOAA is flying along this area right here. Got my wrong line right here between Washington, Montana, hot and heavy right now, back and forth. So I don't know what they're doing, but they are very active and busy over that general area. Again, remember, we just saw the R-135 roll in right in here. We've got fighter activity here, and it looks like we've got some box that's been there for quite some time, tied probably to Homeland Security. This little box looks to be, let me just see what this says, unmanned aircraft. So in addition to the Habal 666 military intelligence balloon that's down here right now. We also have an unmanned drone activity right here. We've got an R-135 here. We've got fighter activity here, kind of painting the picture. They are definitely worried about something going on out in this general area. All right. Okay, now we get over here to the Europe side of the house. This is where you see the drone activity currently right now. So we'll click on that, see what that's all about. Danger area activated. All right. Looks like there's an exercise schedule now. Well, that runs till tomorrow, so that's an old one. So, yeah, that's a danger area, right? We know the Eisenhower's about to pass through here, so maybe they're clearing it, looking, if it hasn't already. Okay. And then, of course, we've got down here in this general area, we have the Hubble, other mil intel balloons coming in, 2 of them. All right. Okay. Now let's get over here and take a look and see if we got anything. Now, I believe this is the area where the Gerald Ford is located. And then look at this complete cover up here now, and then all the way down to that side of the house. All right. Moving on. Check this out. Russia says they downed 36 Ukrainian drones over the Black Sea and Crimea. So this has not changed. It looks like that the Ukrainians are now just trying to pop off things in the general area using drones. We know that the ground effort has all but come to a screeching halt. So that looks like that's their new way of going about things. And then this is the airport when you get down to, let's see, this is, let me just see. I'm going to go back up just a little bit so we can look at the actual airport tracker and its location. All right. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. So this is right here. This is the closest airport to Gaza. This is Gaza, right? This is the airport where they are flying stuff in and out of. One thing that I did find interesting was that this is why I had it expanded, because I was looking at it earlier. If you get into these that don't show any type of aircraft, right? Those would be probably a C-17 kind of thing. This is, it says unknown, but I'm pretty sure that is the Kuwaiti Air Force. Same thing here. Same thing here. And then I go down, I see the Brits have come in. One thing I did not see were the U.S. C-17s. They seem to be pulling them from the board because I've looked, and it also doesn't let me go beyond the last 14 days. But I'm not seeing any U.S. assets, which I know is not accurate. I know that's not accurate. So cleaning it up. All right. Now, this is going to be Biggs Army Airfield. Now, I'm watching this because we saw a lot of activity recently of these flights that all just kind of came in right after this thing kicked off in Israel. And I said, they're bringing in migrants. Now, if I go in and I look at the arrival board and I kind of peel it back just the last 14 days, you're going to notice a lot of things coming in from different areas. That tells me that what they are doing out of Germany is they're flying these people in, not necessarily on C-17s into the United States, but they're bringing them in on general, everyday aircraft, right? They're flying them on regular U.S.-bound flights, and then they're putting them onto other flights when they get to this location with everybody else. So they probably fly them in the United States, put them in a hotel, everybody else comes in, they get enough people to fill a flight, and then they put them on those flights and they send them to these immigrant locations. Now, I showed you on Friday the fact that the White House is trying to put an immigration processing center and migration camp in all 50 states right now. I'll let that sink in. That's why they're pushing that, all of that crazy money towards this program. And then, of course, one of the representatives shared with Breitbart, a congressman, I believe it was, this Gaza Act, where they are trying to stop these people from coming into our country because they aren't vetted. They're getting on airplanes, and then they're just being sent off into our cities all around the country. But notice where this comes in. We got a 6-7 coming in from Indy. We have one coming in from Tucson. This isn't just today. This is Saturday. Baltimore, Washington. Then you have Seattle, Tacoma. And these are wide bodies here. which is interesting. That Southern California Logistics Center, I know there's a camp out there, but these coming in, and then in that case, it actually came in and went back. All right, Chicago, Houston. I mean, they're coming from all over the place. This one, Windsor, New Windsor, New York, Hartsfield. And now I thought, well, maybe that's going to be, a Delta Airlines flight coming in, but it's a Southwest, which is, that's not where they're operating out of, right? They're out of Dallas Love Field. And then Bedford, Massachusetts, Fort Campbell, Cincinnati, right? So you can see last 2.5 weeks, ever since this thing kicked off, look at the amount of flights that have come in that are commercial into a military base, all right? So that tells you more than likely those are immigrants coming into our country. All right, there's that aspect. Let's move on. And this is Dover. Button that up a little bit. A couple 747s landing, one out of Cincinnati, one out of Oklahoma City. And then, of course, that one out of Oklahoma City is headed to Ben Gurion in Tel Aviv. And then RZE Poland, right? That's a Camber flight. That's an unknown owner. All right, and we'll move on. And then we've got Ramstein. Now, this is where I was saying there are a ton of flights coming in to Germany. Notice the only one I see one right now, this is today, right? Baltimore, Washington, 767. I'm going to expand it because I just want to see what it looks like coming in. Let's see. Notice this one right here that came in on Friday. That's actually one of your Graybirds, which is Phoenix Air, right? It's an agency bird coming in. And Reach, Camber, Atlas Air, Reach. So there are all your Reaches, C-17s. You can see them just stacked up. And we go all the way down. Just keep looking, and you'll just continue to see the Reaches coming in, right? And where they come in from. Sofia, England, Stuttgart. Let's see. That's a C&V. That's a Navy Logistics coming out of Naples. All right. But, yeah, you can see very, very, very busy and active in Ramstein. All right, RZE Poland is not. It's just the opposite. Not a lot going on. We see a couple onesie-twosies like this, 747 coming from Dover, but nothing really else on the board. All right, well, let's move on. And this is going to be U.S. Transportation Command coming out of Bahrain and out of Mukatra. I don't know where that is exactly, but that's 2 Camber flights right there. Let me take away these other aircraft so that we can see. I don't need nearby flights. And we'll leave that. All right. So that just gives you a general idea where these guys are coming out of. Let me take this out and there we go. All right. There we go. That gives us kind of a lay of the land there in terms of where they're coming out of. So Middle East, all right? Again, remember, we've got Navy fleet in here. We've got U.S. Coast Guard fleet right here around that side of the house. You get into here, and we've got the Marine Corps as well as some new U.S. Navy assets there. And then we get here, Gerald Ford. And then over here, you have passing through Gibraltar, coming into the Mediterranean, the Ike. All right, so very, very busy in terms of U.S. assets all around the Middle East. Okay. This is going to be your Reach flights. I don't have, I got one on the board coming out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, right? And so, Army Airfield. Okay. This is El Arish International. That is the closest airport to Gaza. Okay, so this is Gaza here. So this looks to be where they are flying a lot of the stuff in and out of. And you can just see it's just straight up desert. And then you get over here behind the occupied West Bank, and you get into Jordan, and that's where we are seeing the rest of these folks coming in, kind of in this general area. All right, and that is I don't really know what that's tied to. I did see a UN aircraft flying into this location. So here it is right here. This is the Salti Airport. That is actually in Jordan. And notice that camera's coming out of Kuwait City. But what's weird is if you go in to look at further flights, nothing on the board. So they're keeping these boards clean. That's intentional, right? That way nobody can show the stack up of how much is going in and out. All right. This is going to be the Brits. Only 2 flights up for the Brits. Kind of strange. Normally you see them a lot more, actually. So coming out of Cyprus, it looks like, and then out of England. All right. And then this stuff that you see, the SIGMET and the AirMet, that's the same stuff we were looking at over on the NOTAM map. All right. Now this is going to be, look at all of that over the United States. There's a lot of stuff, but that could be anything. Ice, turbulence, as well as NOTAMs. It could be a lot of different stuff. So I'll pull that out so that we're not looking at something with confusion. All right, this is going to be national cargo. Notice the amount of 747s. Notice where they're coming out of Asia, Mountain Home, Idaho, JFK, and Puerto Rico, right? So kind of all over the place. Now, they do move a lot of troops, all right? And this is Omni. Nothing on the board for Omni. And then this, of course, this is going to be your immigrant machine. And just notice let me do this because we want to see the associated flights. And there we go. All right. That ties it in. You can see headed down South America, Central America. It looks like, that's interesting. That's going into Cuba, into the interior of the country, which is interesting, right? It's coming out of Tennessee, looks to be headed up to Vancouver. Yeah, that's interesting. That's headed into Canada from there. That could be hockey related, maybe, because I do know that they do have the contract to move hockey teams, but this is typically what we see is not. So, all right. Well, listen, that's going to do it for SITREP today. Again, this has all the hallmarks of a potential Crusade 2.0 that we need to pay very close attention to, because if the United States gets fully engaged within the Middle East and you see all of the uprising and things going on all around the world, that could very, very quickly lead to clashes between the two, okay? It's because that's what it comes down to. I mean, the Jews are a very small percentage when it comes to us and them, all right? And most of it is us, and a lot of it is them. So anyway, that's going to do it. You guys be safe out there. Keep that powder dry and stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. You can check out the latest gear and products by selecting the QR code on your screen now, or go to monkeyworksus.com.